Hey guys, and welcome back. Tonight, we're packing for a trip. We're not going to the airport or booking a hotel online. We are going on a journey to the Middle Ages, a world of beautiful cathedrals, of chivalrous knights, and of quaint countryside inns. Or so the stories would have you believe. The reality of travel in the medieval world was not a vacation. It was a grueling, dangerous, and often life-threatening ordeal. Your biggest fear isn't missing a flight, but bandits, disease, and starvation. This is the story of the medieval road trip, and why your vacation was a nightmare. So, before we take our first muddy step, take a moment to like the video and subscribe if you enjoy these quiet journeys into the past. As always, let me know in the comments where you are all listening from. Alright, dim the lights. Let the world outside fade away, and let us step back in time. You are a man of substance. You are a respected cloth merchant in the great, teeming, and prosperous city of London, in the year of our Lord, 1380. Your world is a solid and predictable one. It is the world of your timber-framed house on Cheapside. The ground floor, a bustling shop filled with the rich, earthy smell of fine woolen cloth. The upper floors, a comfortable home for your wife and your 3 children. Your life is governed by the ringing of the city's church bells, by the predictable rhythms of the market, and by the satisfyingly solid feel of silver coins in your purse. Your world is safe, it is orderly, and today you must leave it. The letter arrived a week ago, carried by a messenger from the coast. It is from the guildmaster at Canterbury. The Great St. Giles Fair, the most important trade event of the season, will begin in 2 weeks' time. Your presence is not requested, it is expected. It is a journey you must make. Your contracts for the entire year, the very survival of your prosperous business, depend on it. The distance is not great. It is 60 miles, a journey that a future man might make in a single thoughtless hour in a metal carriage. For you, it is an expedition. It is a dangerous and deeply unwelcome undertaking that has filled the last week of your life with a quiet, gnawing, and all-consuming dread. The preparations for this short journey have been immense. The first and most important of your tasks had nothing to do with packing. It was to visit a scribe, a thin, quiet man who smells of ink and of death, and to dictate your last will and testament. This is the first rule of medieval travel. You must assume you will not return. You have spent 2 days putting your affairs in order, ensuring your wife will inherit the business, that your children will be cared for. The simple act of planning a 60-mile trip is an act of confronting your own mortality. Next, you had to secure your goods. You have chosen your finest bolts of woolen cloth, dyed a magnificent, expensive crimson and a deep, noble blue. These have been wrapped in layers of waxed canvas to protect them from the inevitable rain, and they have been loaded onto a sturdy, 2-wheeled cart. You have also had to hire a carter, a grim, silent man with a face like a knotted piece of wood, to manage the cart and its mule. But you cannot travel alone with a single unarmed carter. To do so would be to paint a target on your own back, and so you have had to engage in the most expensive part of the preparations. You have hired 2 men-at-arms, 2 brutish, bored-looking mercenaries whose loyalty is not to you, but to the silver coins you have paid them. They are your protection against the other, less formal men-at-arms who call the roads their home. You are paying a small fortune for the privilege of not being robbed and murdered on your own country's roads. Your own personal packing is a simple, grim affair. There is no room for comfort. A heavy, oiled wool cloak to keep out the worst of the rain, a spare linen tunic, a small, sharp dagger for your belt, and a heavy purse of silver, the source of all your anxiety, hidden in a secret pocket on the inside of your tunic. And now, the morning of your departure has arrived. The final preparation is the most difficult of all. It is the farewell. You stand in the courtyard of your own home. The cart is loaded. The mercenaries are leaning on their spears, looking impatient. And you are saying goodbye to your wife. She is trying to be brave, but you can see the deep, genuine fear in her eyes. She is not worried that you will miss your connection. She is worried that you will be killed. You kiss your children, holding them a little too tightly. The familiar, warm, and wonderful smell of them, a sudden, painful reminder of the world you are about to leave. You are saying goodbye as if you are a soldier, marching off to war in a foreign land. Because in a very real and very brutal sense, you are. You finally turn from your family. You give the signal to the carter. With a reluctant groan of wood and a snap of the reins, the great and terrible journey begins. You walk out of the safety of your courtyard and into the familiar, bustling street of your home city. You take one last look back at your home, at the wife and children who are the center of your entire world. Then you turn your face towards the road, a muddy, uncertain, and deeply unwelcoming path that leads out of the city and into the dangerous, unknown world beyond. The great ordeal has begun. You leave the familiar, noisy, and reassuringly solid world of London behind you. The great stone gate of the city closes with a slow, grinding finality, and you are now in the world beyond. The transition is immediate and profound. The relatively well-maintained cobblestone streets of the city give way, almost instantly, to a wide, undefined, and deeply unwelcoming track of mud and stone. The familiar, close-packed chaos of the timber-framed houses is replaced by the vast, open, and amazing mile. And unnervingly quiet landscape of the English countryside. The air itself changes. The city air, for all its smells of smoke and humanity, was the smell of your life, of your work. The air here is different. It is cleaner, yes, but it is also colder, and it carries the damp, earthy scent of a world that is not governed by the laws of men, but by the older, more indifferent laws of nature. You are now on the Great Kent Road, the ancient path that leads southeast towards the coast, towards Canterbury. You know, from the stories of the old men, but this is a ghost. It is the ghost of a road that was built 1,000 years ago by the Roman giants. A great and perfectly straight artery of stone and logic that they used to march their legions across the land. And for the first few miles of your journey, you walk upon the bones of that dead empire. Here, in the shadow of the city, some of the original Roman paving stones remain. They are massive, gray, and perfectly fitted, their surface worn smooth by the passage of 1,000,000 feet and 1,000,000 wheels over 1,000 years. For this brief, blessed, and beautiful hour, the journey is almost pleasant. The wheels of your cart roll smoothly. Your own leather-clad feet find a solid, reliable purchase. The pace is good. But the ghost soon fades. The great works of the ancients were not maintained. For 1,000 years, the stones of their great road have been a quarry for the living. They have been pried up by local farmers to build their cottage walls, by priests to build their churches, by petty lords to build their gatehouses. The great, solid artery of the Romans has been picked apart, leaving behind only a wounded and deeply scarred corpse. What is left is not a road. It is a suggestion, a memory of a road. It is a wide, deeply rutted, and almost impassable track of pure, unadulterated mud. The rains of the past week have turned the rich English earth into a thick, deep, and clinging quagmire. You are not riding in the kite. That is a luxury reserved for your precious cargo of woolen cloth. You are walking beside it, and every single step is a battle. You place your foot down, and the mud does not just yield, it swallows. Your boot sinks, ankle deep, into the cold, wet, and sucking ooze. And then, You must pull it free, an act that requires a surprising and deeply wearying amount of physical effort. A thick, wet schlop sound is the constant and maddening music of your journey. Step, sink, pull, schlop. Step, sink, pull, schlop. This is your rhythm for the next 8 hours. The carter, a grim, silent man with arms as thick as small tree trunks, is fighting his own war. He shouts a constant stream of curses and encouragement at the single, pathetic-looking mule that is straining to pull the heavy cart through the muck. The wheels of the cart, which had rolled so smoothly on the Roman stones, are now trapped in the deep, ancient ruts that have been carved into the road by 1,000 other carts before yours. The carter must use all his skill and all his strength to keep the wheels from sinking so deep that you become hopelessly, immovably bogged down. Your pace is no longer the brisk walk of a man. It is the slow, agonizing, and almost geological crawl of a creature that is part of the mud itself. You look up at the sun, a weak, watery, and indifferent disk in the gray sky, and you perform a simple, depressing calculation. You have been walking for 3 hours, and you have covered, perhaps, 5 miles. The 60-mile journey to Canterbury will not take 2 days, as you had optimistically hoped. It will take the better part of a week of this. You are a prosperous merchant, a man of the city, but here, on this muddy, unforgiving road, your wealth is meaningless. Your fine leather boots are caked in a thick, heavy layer of mud. The hem of your expensive woolen cloak is soaked and stained a dark, dirty brown. And a deep, profound, and grinding boredom, a boredom that is almost a physical pain, begins to settle upon you. There is nothing to see but the endless brown and churning sea of the muddy track before you. The gray, weeping sky above you, and the bleak, empty, and winter-ready fields on either side. You pass a group of peasants working in one of those fields. They stop their own, back-breaking labor for a moment to watch your small, pathetic procession pass. You are a man of a different class, a different world. But as you look at their faces, and they look at yours, there is a strange, shared, and unspoken understanding. You are all, in your own way, prisoners of the mud. As the light begins to fail, and the gray of the day begins to deepen into the darker gray of the evening, you have been walking for nearly 8 hours. You have covered, you estimate, no more than 12 miles. You are exhausted. You are caked in mud. You are hungry, and you are cold. The romantic idea of a journey, of an adventure, is a foolish, childish dream. This is not a journey. It is a slow, grinding, and deeply miserable form of labor. The carter, his voice a low grunt, points ahead. Through a break in the trees, a mile or so down the track, you can see it. A single, faint, and almost impossibly welcome pinprick of warm orange light, and a thin, gray trickle of smoke rising into the darkening sky. It is an inn. It is your only hope for shelter, for a hot meal, and for a brief, blessed respite from the tyranny of the road. Your first long and deeply, deeply uncomfortable day of your medieval road trip is almost over. The sight of the distant, flickering light of the inn is a profound and welcome relief. A small, golden promise of warmth, of food, and of a momentary safety from the endless, grinding misery of the road. But the journey is not yet over. Between you and that small, blessed sanctuary lies one final and much-feared obstacle. The road ahead narrows and plunges directly into the dark, brooding heart of the King's Wood. As your small, pathetic procession reaches the edge of the forest, a palpable and unspoken tension descends upon your group. The grim, silent carter pulls his hood lower over his eyes. The 2 mercenaries, who have been walking with a lazy, bored swagger all day, now unconsciously straighten their backs, their hands resting lightly and professionally on the hilts of their longswords. To step from the open, muddy fields into the woods at twilight is to step from one world into a completely different and far more dangerous one. The moment you pass under the shadow of the first great oak trees, the last of the day's weak gray light is extinguished. You are plunged into a deep, green, and claustrophobic gloom. The road, which was a wide and open track, now becomes a narrow, winding, and almost tunnel-like passage, hemmed in on both sides by a thick, tangled, and impenetrable wall of ancient trees and thorny undergrowth. The air grows still and cold, and it smells of damp earth, of rotting leaves, and of a deep, ancient, and watchful silence. The familiar sounds of your journey are transformed. The slow, rhythmic, and almost comforting schlop of the mule's hooves in the mud now seems deafeningly loud. The steady squeaking groan of the cart's axle, which was an annoyance in the open fields, is now a loud, repetitive, and deeply unwelcome announcement of your presence to anyone or anything that might be listening in the shadows. And you know that something is listening. This is not just a forest, it has a reputation. It is a known haunt of the desperate and the damned, of outlaws, of masterless men, soldiers who have deserted their lord's service, of peasants who have fled their land, choosing the quick, dangerous freedom of a bandit's life over the slow, certain death of the famine. You are a prosperous merchant, traveling with a cart laden with valuable goods. You are a fat, slow-moving sheep, and you have just willingly walked into a forest full of hungry wolves. Your own mind becomes a torture chamber of fear. Every part of you is on high alert. The weariness of the long day's walk is burned away by a new, sharp, and all-consuming surge of adrenaline. Your eyes are constantly, frantically, scanning the deep, impenetrable shadows on either side of the road. You are looking for the glint of moonlight on a steel helmet, for the dark, hunched shape of a man with a bow. Every sound is a threat. The mournful hoot of an owl in the high branches makes you jump. The sudden sharp snap of a twig in the undergrowth to your right makes your heart leap into your throat, and you instinctively reach for the small, pathetic-looking dagger at your bait, your only personal weapon. You are acutely aware that your life now rests entirely in the hands of the two bored, cynical mercenaries you have hired. Men who would, you are certain, abandon you in an instant if they were faced with a truly overwhelming force. You look at them. Their transformation is a deeply unsettling thing. They are no longer the lazy, complaining men of the open road. They are now quiet, alert, and deadly-looking predators. They walk with a new, light-footed grace, their eyes constantly moving, their swords now loosened in their scabbards. Their newfound seriousness is not a comfort. It is a terrifying confirmation that the danger you are imagining is not just a fantasy. It is real. You are halfway through the woods. The darkness is now almost absolute, broken only by the single swaying and deeply inadequate lantern that hangs from your cart, its light casting wild, leaping, and monstrous shadows into the trees. And then you hear it. It is a distinct and unmistakably human sound. It is the sound of a man coughing. A low, dry, hacking cough coming from the deep woods just off the road to your left. Your entire, small procession freezes in an instant. The carter pulls the mule to a halt. The mercenaries stop, and in a single, fluid, and almost silent motion, they draw their long, ugly, and very real swords. The sound of the steel sliding from the leather scabbards is a soft, sinister shing in the profound silence. You are paralyzed with a pure, abject, and almost liquid terror. This is it. The moment you have been dreading all day. The ambush. You all stand there, in the middle of the dark, silent forest, for what feels like an entire lifetime. The only sound is the frantic, hammering beat of your own heart. You are staring into the impenetrable black wall of the forest, expecting it to erupt at any moment with the shouts of men, with the flight of an arrow, with the rush of a half-dozen armed and desperate figures. And then, from the shadows, a figure emerges. It is not a bandit. It is an old man, a peasant. His back bent under a great, heavy load of firewood. His face, in the lantern light, is a mask of pure, terrified surprise. He is as startled by you as you are by him. He sees the drawn swords of your mercenaries, and his eyes go wide with fear. He gives a small, frightened bow, and then he practically scuttles across the road and disappears into the darkness on the other side. He was a simple woodcutter, a poacher, most likely, gathering his lord's wood in the dark, but not a threat to you. A collective, shuddering sigh of relief passes through your small group. The mercenaries sheathe their swords with a quiet, disgusted sound. The immediate threat is gone, but the incident has left your nerves completely and utterly shredded. The terrifying possibility has been made real. There are other people in these woods. You finally, after what feels like an eternity, see a break in the trees ahead. You can see the open sky again, and you can see the light, the warm, steady, and impossibly beautiful light of the inn, no longer a distant promise, but a real, close, and achievable sanctuary. You stumble out of the dark, oppressive tunnel of the forest and back into the relative safety of the open road, your entire body drenched in a cold sweat that has nothing to do with the temperature of the night. You have survived the danger in the woods, but the long, dark night, with its own more intimate and more human set of dangers, has only just begun. You stumble out of the oppressive, claustrophobic darkness of the King's Wood and back into the relative safety of the open road. The air here is clean and cold, and the vast open sky above, now a deep, star-dusted indigo, feels like a blessing after the tangled, suffocating canopy of the forest. Your body is drenched in a cold sweat that has nothing to do with the physical effort of your journey, but with the pure, adrenalized terror of the last hour. The close call with the woodcutter, the imagined bandits in every shadow, has left your nerves completely and utterly shredded. But ahead of you, no more than a few hundred paces away, is your reward, your sanctuary, the inn. Its light, which was a distant, hopeful pinprick, is now a warm, steady, and impossibly welcoming golden-orange glow in the vast, dark landscape. You can hear, carried on the cold night air, the distant, muffled sound of men's laughter and the faint, cheerful notes of a badly played lute. It is the sound of life, of warmth, of safety. You quicken your pace, your exhausted legs finding a new and desperate energy, and you half walk, half stumble the final stretch of the muddy road. As you get closer, the romantic, distant image of the inn begins to resolve into a harsher, more brutal reality. It is not a charming, well-kept building. It is a squat, ugly, and sagging structure of wattle and daub, its thatched roof heavy with moss and moisture. The windows are not welcoming squares of light, but small, narrow, and heavily shuttered slits. The only sign that it is an inn is a crude, painted wooden sign that hangs from a rusty chain, depicting a boar with a crazed, angry look in its eye. A welcoming sound of laughter, as you draw nearer, reveals itself to be not cheerful, but loud, drunken, and aggressive. And you are met some 20 paces from the door by a wall of smell. It is a thick, almost solid miasma of stale ale, of unwashed bodies, of greasy, cooking meat, of wood smoke, and of the faint underlying but unmistakable stench of a nearby privy. The beautiful, distant promise of a sanctuary is already beginning to sour. You push open the heavy, crude, wooden door which groans on its leather hinges, and you step inside. You have not stepped into a quiet, welcoming haven. You have stepped into a vision of hell's own common room. The space is a single, large, long, and low-ceilinged room. The air inside is so thick with a greasy, choking wood smoke from the great, open hearth at the far end that it is almost impossible to breathe. Your eyes immediately begin to sting and water. The only light comes from the roaring, smoky fire and from a few sputtering tallow candles that sit in pools of their own melted, stinking fat on the rough wooden tables. The floor is not made of clean wooden planks. It is hard-packed, uneven earth, and it is covered in a thick layer of rushes. But these are not the fresh, sweet-smelling rushes of a well-kept house. These are ancient, trodden, and filthy. They are sodden with years of spilled ale, of discarded food, of the mud from 1,000 travelers' boots, and of God only knows what other human and animal fluids. The smell of them, a damp, musty, and slightly sweet scent of pure, unadulterated filth, is the foundational note of the entire room's foul perfume. And the room is packed with people. It is a chaotic and intimidating cross-section of the medieval road. You see a group of your fellow merchants, their faces a mask of weary anxiety, huddled together at one table. You see a family, a husband and a wife, and their two small, terrified-looking children, trying to make themselves invisible in a dark corner. You see a group of pilgrims, their drab woolen cloaks marked with the seashell of their holy quest. Their faces a mixture of pious devotion and profound exhaustion. And you see them, the men you truly fear. A large table in the center of the room is occupied by a dozen off-duty soldiers, their armor unbuckled, their swords on the table beside them, their faces red with drink, their laughter a loud, brutal, and threatening sound. Your own two mercenaries, their duty for the day apparently over, have already found their way to that table and are deep in a tankard of ale. Their laughter, as loud and as witless as the rest. You are a man of substance, a man of property, a man used to the quiet comfort and the privacy of your own home. And in this single, smoky, stinking, and deeply intimidating room, you must now find your food and your rest for the night. You make your way to the innkeeper, a great, hulking brute of a man with a single good eye and an apron that is so stiff with the grease and the grime of 100 meals that it could likely stand up on its own. "I require a room," you say, your voice trying to project an authority you do not feel. The innkeeper lets out a short, barking laugh, revealing a set of brown, broken teeth. "A room, master?" he says, his one good eye looking at you with a mixture of pity and contempt. "You see any rooms here?" He gestures with a great, greasy thumb at the chaotic scene behind you. "There is a space on the floor by the hearth if you have your own blanket. Or for a full silver penny, you can have a spot on the common mattress." He points to a dark, raised platform at the far end of the room. Upon it lies a single, enormous, and deeply uninviting-looking mattress. A great bag of ticking that is filled with straw and is, you can see, already occupied by a half-dozen snoring, twitching, and deeply unappealing strangers. The inn, your bright, shining beacon of hope on the long, dark road, has turned out to be just another circle of hell. It is not a place of safety and of rest. It is a place of noise, of filth, and of a new, more intimate and more human kind of threat. You look at the crowded, smoky, and deeply unwelcoming scene, and you realize that you will have to sleep tonight with your purse of silver clutched tightly in your hand, and with one weary and deeply anxious eye wide open. You have paid your silver penny for a space on the common floor, a transaction that has stripped you of both your money and your dignity. You now sit on a rough, splintery wooden bench at a table that is sticky with the residue of 100 other meals. The smoky, chaotic, and deeply unwelcoming common room of the inn is now your dining hall, your lounge, and your bedchamber, all in one. You are exhausted, your nerves are raw, and you are consumed by a deep, gnawing, and all-encompassing hunger. It is time to eat. You manage to catch the single roving eye of the innkeeper as he passes. A bowl of pottage, you shout over the din of the drunken soldiers, and a mug of your best ale. He grunts, a sound that is both an acknowledgement and an insult, and disappears into the smoky gloom that surrounds the grey hearth. The ale arrives first, delivered by a serving girl whose bare feet are black with the filth of the rush-strewn floor. She slams the heavy wooden mug down on the table, and a good portion of its contents sloshes over the side. The ale is not the clean, crisp, and well-brewed drink of your London guild. It is a thick, cloudy, and pale brownish liquid, a small beer, brewed here at the inn, likely with the same questionable water from the nearby well. It smells sour, and it tastes of little more than yeast and disappointment. But it is wet, and it is a welcome relief to your parched throat. You drink it deeply. A few minutes later, the girl returns with your pottage. She places a heavy, greasy wooden bowl before you, along with a crude, bent spoon of pewter. A cloud of steam, which smells vaguely of boiled vegetables and of a deep, ancient, and unidentifiable meatiness, rises to greet you. This is to be your sustenance. You look down into the bowl, and you are met with a mystery. The pottage is a thick, brownish gray, and almost completely homogeneous sludge. You can see the mushy, boiled into submission shapes of turnips and cabbage, the staple foods of the road. You can see a few pale and bloated grains of barley, but the bulk of the stew is a thick, greasy, and entirely anonymous substance. And floating within it are a few sad, stringy, and grayish chunks of what is, presumably, meat. Your modern, 21st century mind knows exactly what you are looking at, and the knowledge is a source of profound existential dread. You are looking at a perpetual stew. You look over at the great black iron cauldron that hangs from a hook over the roaring hearth fire. You know that this pot is never ever emptied. At the beginning of the day, the innkeeper's wife simply adds new ingredients to whatever was left over from the night before, and the night before that, and the night before that. The stew you are about to eat is a living, evolving, and multi-generational entity, a time capsule of every meal that has been served in this inn for the past week. It has been kept in a constant, but not quite boiling, state of lukewarm bacteriological incubation. And the meat, you tentatively poke at one of the stringy gray chunks with your spoon. What is it? Your mind, a willing and eager torturer, presents you with the possibilities. It is not the fine fresh beef or pork of your own table. It is, you are almost certain, the cheapest and most questionable of meats. It could be the tough, stringy flesh of an old dying sheep that the innkeeper bought for a pittance from a local farmer. It could be the gamey, dark meat of a squirrel or a rabbit, traded from a local poacher who caught it in one of the Lord's forbidden traps. Or it could be something worse. It could be meat that was already on the verge of spoiling. Its slightly sour taste and its off-putting smell, now hopefully, but not certainly, masked by a heavy, desperate, and all-concealing dose of salt and onion. You are now faced with the traveler's ultimate and most terrible dilemma. Your body, after a long day of brutal physical labor, is screaming for hot food. It is screaming for the calories, for the protein, for the simple, life-giving sustenance that is contained in this bowl. But your mind is screaming, with an equal and opposite terror. It is screaming with the knowledge of food poisoning, of the bloody flux, of dysentery. It is screaming with the knowledge that this single, humble, and deeply suspicious bowl of pottage could, in the next few hours, transform your simple misery into a violent, agonizing, and potentially fatal sickness. You look around the room. The great brawny soldiers at the next table are devouring their own bowls of the same pottage, with a loud, slurping, and deeply uncritical gusto. To refuse to eat, to turn your nose up at the host's food, would be a profound and dangerous insult. It would mark you as a soft, arrogant, and untrustworthy city dweller. You have no choice. You must eat. You take a deep breath, say a silent, desperate prayer to a God you hope is listening, and you take your first, hesitant spoonful. The taste is ambiguous. It is overwhelmingly salty, a common trick to mask the flavor of meat that is not entirely fresh. It is greasy. It has the dough, familiar taste of overboiled turnips. And the meat itself is tough, stringy, and has a strange, slightly sour aftertaste that you try with all your might to ignore. Every single mouthful is a gamble. Every swallow is an act of faith. You are playing a game of pure, blind roulette with your own digestive system. You chew, you swallow, and you pray. You pray that the meat was not as old as it tasted. You pray that the cook's hands were at least moderately clean. You pray that the water in the broth was boiled long enough to kill the worst of the invisible monsters that you know live within it. You manage to force down half the bowl. You can eat no more. Your hunger has been beaten into submission, but your stomach is now a tight, anxious knot. You push the bowl away. You have taken in the necessary fuel, but you have also, very likely, ingested a host of new and dangerous enemies. You sit in the smoky, noisy, and deeply unsanitary common room. A new and unpleasant battle now quietly beginning in the pit of your own stomach. The meal is over, but its consequences, for good or for ill, will reveal themselves in the long, dark, and deeply uncertain hours of the night to come. The suspicious pottage sits heavy and uncertain in your churning stomach. You have forced down enough of the greasy, lukewarm sludge to silence the most violent pangs of your hunger. But you have found no comfort in the act, only a new and profound anxiety about the war that may be about to break out in your own bowels. The long, miserable evening in the common room of the inn stretches before you. A room is a microcosm of the world you are traveling through, a loud, chaotic, and deeply untrustworthy place. The soldiers at the next table are now deep in their cups, their laughter a series of loud, barking, and aggressive explosions. A group of pilgrims in a dark corner have begun to chant their evening prayers, their low, droning voices a strange and pious counterpoint to the drunken blasphemies of the soldiers. The air is so thick with the greasy smoke from the fire and the sweet, cloying stench of stale ale that it feels like a physical, suffocating blanket. You are a man of property, a man of quiet domestic habits, a man accustomed to the peace and the privacy of your own home, and you are trapped in this circle of hell. Your own two mercenaries, whom you are paying a small fortune to protect you, are now indistinguishable from the other drunken soldiers, their promises of vigilance long forgotten in a haze of cheap, potent ale. You are, you realize with a chilling certainty, entirely on your own. As the night deepens, the innkeeper, a great, hulking brute of a man, makes a final, bellowing announcement that the ale taps are now closed. The fire is built up with a few great green logs that will smolder and smoke all night. The time has come to attempt the impossible, to find some measure of rest in this chaotic and deeply unwelcoming place. You had asked for a room. You had been laughed at. Now, you see what the innkeeper meant when he offered you for a full silver penny. A spot on the common mattress, at the far end of the great room, away from the main door, but closest to the smoky, oppressive heat of the hearth, is a low, wide wooden platform. And upon this platform lies the bed. It is not a bed in any sense that you would understand. It is a single, enormous, and monstrous mattress, a great lumpy bag of coarse, greasy ticking that is perhaps 15 feet long and 10 feet wide, and its rolling, uneven surface is already occupied by a half-dozen other snoring, twitching, and deeply unappealing strangers. This is your bed, and they are to be your bedfellows. You make your way to the platform, a profound sense of despair settling upon you. You look down at the mattress. The straw that fills it has not been changed in what looks like a full season. It is a compressed, lumpy, and almost solid mass, and it exudes a powerful, sour, and musty smell of old damp straw, of spilled ale, and of the faint, unmistakable, and deeply personal odors of the hundreds of other unwashed, weary travelers who have slept and sweated and dreamed their miserable dreams upon it before you. And your modern mind knows, with a scientific certainty that is a form of pure, exquisite torture, what else this mattress contains. It is not just a bed. It is a thriving, bustling, and deeply cosmopolitan ecosystem of filth. It is a city, and its inhabitants are the fleas, the lice, the bedbugs, and a billion other invisible, microscopic creatures of disease and decay. You must now, willingly, lie down in the heart of this city. The innkeeper points to a small, unoccupied space on the edge of the mattress, between a large, snoring wool merchant and a thin, wheezing pilgrim. That is your designated spot. That is what your silver penny has purchased. There is no ceremony of preparing for bed. You do not undress. To do so would be to invite not only a chill, but the almost certain theft of your clothes. You simply remove your heavy, muddy boots and your outer cloak, which you roll up to serve as a pathetic and deeply inadequate pillow. You keep your tunic and your breeches on, and you instinctively rest your hand on the secret, hidden purse of silver that is stitched to the inside of your tunic. You lie down. The mattress groans under your weight, and the air is filled with the dry, dusty rustle of the ancient straw. The proximity of the other bodies is a shocking and deeply unwelcome intimacy. You are lying shoulder to shoulder with these complete strangers. You can feel the warmth of the great snoring merchant's body next to you. You can smell the sour, wine-soaked breath of the man on your other side. The air is a thick and suffocating tapestry of the snores, the coughs, the wheezes, and the occasional odorous releases of a half-dozen sleeping men. And then you feel it, a small, sharp, and utterly unmistakable stinging sensation on your ankle. A flea. You have been here for less than a minute, and the native inhabitants of this mattress have already come to welcome you. You know that by the morning, your body will be a map of 100 of these tiny, itching, and infuriating bites. You close your eyes, a desperate and futile attempt to find some small measure of peace. But sleep is an impossible dream. The noise is a constant guttural symphony of snoring, of sleep-talking, of a man grinding his teeth. The air is thick and hard to breathe, and the fear is a constant, low-grade, and ever-present companion. You are in a state of profound and absolute vulnerability. You are a wealthy man, lying in the dark, surrounded by poor, desperate, and possibly dangerous strangers. The only thing protecting your life and your fortune is your own exhausted and deeply anxious vigilance. You lie there, in the smoky darkness, your hand clutching your hidden purse, your skin beginning to crawl with the unseen movements of 100 tiny insects. You are a man who is accustomed to the clean, quiet, and private sanctuary of your own bed, with your own wife beside you. And you are now a creature in a pile, a single, anonymous body in a great, snoring, farting, and flea-bitten heap of miserable humanity. The inn, which was supposed to be a refuge from the dangers of the road, has revealed its final and most intimate horror. And the long, dark, and almost certainly sleepless night has only just begun. Sleep, if it came at all, was a shallow, fitful, and deeply unsatisfying thing. You spent the long, dark hours in a state of hyper-vigilant pseudo-slumber, your mind a nervous guard dog, startling awake at every loud snore from the drunkard beside you, at every rustle in the straw, at the constant, maddening sensation of tiny insects crawling and biting your skin. You did not rest. You simply endured the night. You are awakened not by the gentle light of the sun, but by the brutal, chaotic sounds of the common room coming back to life. The innkeeper, his voice a gravelly roar, is shouting at his serving girl to build up the fire. A group of soldiers, their heads no doubt pounding from a night of heavy drinking, are arguing loudly over a spilled mug of ale. The day has begun, and it has not waited for you to feel rested. You sit up, and your entire body protests. Every muscle is stiff and aching from a night spent on the hard, lumpy, and unforgiving straw mattress. And your skin is a disaster. You look at your arms in the dim morning light, and you see that they are a patchwork of small, red, and furiously itching welts. The fleas of the common bed have feasted upon you all night, and they have left their mark. The first, urgent need of the morning is to relieve yourself. You stumble out of the smoky common room and into the cold, gray, and muddy back courtyard of the inn. In the far corner stands the privy. It is a small, crude, and deeply uninviting wooden shed. The smell that emanates from it is a foul, eye-watering stench that is a landmark in itself. You hold your breath. You perform the necessary and deeply unpleasant task as quickly as possible on a rough, splintered wooden plank over a deep, dark, and stinking pit. And you flee back into the relative freshness of the courtyard air. Your next task is to wash. Back in the common room, a single, large, wooden basin of cold, scummy water has been provided for all the guests. It sits on a stool by the door. You watch as a burly, unwashed soldier plunges his entire head into the basin, snorting and spitting, and then uses the single, communal, and already filthy linen towel to dry his face. You, a man accustomed to the clean, private basin of your own home, are filled with a profound and absolute revulsion. The thought of using that water is more disgusting than the thought of remaining dirty. You settle for wiping the sleep from your own eyes with the sleeve of your tunic. This is the reality of personal hygiene on the road. Breakfast is a grim and joyless affair. It consists of a thick, stale slab of the same dark bread from last night, slightly toasted over the fire to soften it, and another mug of the same sour and watery ale. As you chew the hard, tasteless bread, your mind is not on the food. It is on the suspicious pottage from last night. You are engaged in a quiet, internal, and deeply anxious inventory of your own body. Is that small cramp in your stomach a simple hunger pang? Or is it the first ominous rumbling of the bloody flux? Every gurgle, every twinge, is a potential signal that your miserable journey is about to become a fatal one. But the morning brings one small but profound relief. You perform a subtle, secret, and deeply necessary check. Your hand slips inside your tunic to the hidden pouch where you keep your silver. You feel the familiar, heavy, and reassuring shape of your coins. They are still there. You have survived the long, vulnerable night without being robbed by your snoring, drunken bedfellows. In this world, that is a significant and noteworthy victory. You must now prepare to leave this place. You must find your own small and deeply unreliable retinue. You find the carter in the courtyard, already arguing with the innkeeper over the price of the mule's meager ration of hay. And you find your two hired mercenaries, slumped over a table in the common room, their faces pale and green, their eyes bloodshot, in the grip of a profound and self-inflicted hangover. They look less like your fierce protectors and more like two sick children. You must rouse them, a difficult and unpleasant task, and chivvy them into preparing for the day's journey. You pay the innkeeper his fee, a sum that feels like a profound insult for the miserable and sleepless night you have just endured. And then, finally, you step out of the dark, smoky, stinking, and deeply inhospitable world of the inn, and back into the cold, clean, and gray light of the morning. You are not refreshed. You are not restored. You are dirtier than when you arrived. You are covered in a constellation of itching flea bites. You are still profoundly exhausted, and you are filled with a deep and anxious uncertainty about the state of your own bowels. The inn was not a sanctuary. It was not a refuge. It was just a different, more intimate, and more disgusting circle of the same wearying hell as the road itself. You turn your face towards the long, muddy, and unwelcoming track that stretches away from you into the morning mist. The second day of your great and terrible journey has begun. You stand in the cold, gray morning light, the foul, smoky stench of the inn a fading but unpleasant memory behind you. The second day of your journey has begun. You are exhausted, you are covered in flea bites, and you are deeply, profoundly on edge. The memory of the dark forest from yesterday, the sudden terror of a simple cough in the woods, is a fresh and vivid wound in your mind. You look at your small, pathetic company. There is the grim-faced carter, a man whose only loyalty is to his mule. And there are your two hired mercenaries, their faces a pale greenish hue, their movements slow and clumsy with the after-effects of a night of heavy drinking. This is your army. This is your protection, and you know with an absolute and terrifying certainty that it is not enough. Your small, slow-moving, and obviously wealthy party is an easy and tempting target for any group of determined outlaws. You must make a choice. To travel alone is to risk almost certain robbery and death. The only other option is to sacrifice your independence for the illusion of safety. You must find a larger group. You must find safety in numbers. You urge the carter to a faster pace, and after an hour of slogging through the cold, thick mud, you see them ahead. It is another, larger group of travelers, a small, mobile village moving at the same agonizingly slow pace as you are. You make the decision. You will join them. As you draw closer, you begin to understand that you are not just joining a group for protection. You are entering a new, complex, and deeply unpredictable social world with its own hierarchies, its own dangers, and its own unwritten rules. This is the company you must now keep. At the heart of the group, and its most powerful and intimidating faction, is a small company of soldiers. There are 6 of them, hulking men in stained leather jacks, their faces a mixture of boredom and a low-grade, simmering aggression. They are not the king's men. They are mercenaries. Their service recently concluded with a local lord, and they are now making their way back to London to spend their pay and find a new war. They are a profound and deeply mixed blessing. Their presence, their longswords, and their professional aura of violence are the single greatest deterrent to any bandits who might be watching from the woods. But they are also a source of constant, low-grade anxiety. They are loud, they are crude, and they are dangerously unpredictable. You know that their loyalty is a thin and fragile thing. and that the same sword that might protect you from a thief could just as easily be turned on you if they decide your purse is a more promising source of income than their contract. The second faction is a small, somber group of pilgrims, their drab, woolen cloaks marked with the faded embroidered shell that shows they are on the great pilgrimage to the shrine of St. Thomas Becket at Canterbury. They are your destination mates. They walk together, their voices a low, constant murmur of prayer. Their presence lends a certain moral and spiritual legitimacy to your traveling party, a holy shield against the evils of the road. But their leader is a stern, thin-lipped priest with eyes that seem to judge and condemn the worldly wealth of your merchant's attire. You feel his constant disapproving gaze upon you. And then there's a family, a craftsman and his wife and their 2 small children, their few pathetic belongings loaded onto a small handcart. They are, like you, a vulnerable island of domesticity in this wild and dangerous world. You feel a natural kinship with them, but it is a kinship that is tainted by a cold, practical reality. You are also competitors. You will be competing for the same scarce resources. The last loaf of bread at a village shop. The last patch of dry floor space at the next grimy inn. You, with your cart of valuable goods and your secret purse of silver, must now find your place in this strange, temporary, and volatile society. And you quickly learn your role. You are the purse. As you walk, one of the soldiers, a great bearded man with a jagged scar on his cheek, falls into step beside you. He makes pleasant, if crude, conversation. But you know what this is. He is not seeking friendship. He is making an assessment. He is gauging your wealth, your nervousness, your generosity. At the next small village you pass through, he will suggest, with a friendly but unmistakably menacing tone, that you, a man of such obvious substance, should buy a round of ale for your brave protectors, and you will do it, because you are not paying for ale. You are paying for continued protection. You are paying your taxes to the temporary, mobile government of the road. The entire day is a long and exhausting performance. You must be humble before the priest, generous with the soldiers, and cautiously sympathetic to the poor family, all while guarding your own purse and your own safety. You are a man who is used to the clear, written rules of your guild, of the city. But the road has no such rules. It is a world of fluid, dangerous, and unwritten social contracts, and a single misjudged word, a single perceived insult, could have disastrous consequences. You have found your safety in numbers, but you have traded the clean, simple, and honest fear of the lone bandit in the woods for the new, more complex, and deeply stressful danger of navigating a small, volatile, and deeply untrustworthy society. You are no longer just a traveler. You are a politician, and your tiny, mobile kingdom is a fragile and deeply paranoid one. You travel for the rest of the long gray afternoon as part of this strange, new, and deeply untrustworthy mobile village. The presence of the 6 armed soldiers is a comfort of a sort, a brutish and unpredictable shield against the dangers of the road. But the cost of that protection is the constant, low-grade stress of their loud, crude, and often menacing company. You are no longer just a traveler. You are a diplomat, a paymaster, and a warden, trying to manage the delicate and ever-shifting politics of your small, desperate caravan. Late in the afternoon, a new obstacle appears, one that cannot be frightened away by the presence of your hired swords. It is a river. It is not a great, mighty river, but it is wide, deep, and fast-flowing, its waters a churning, muddy brown from the recent rains. There is no ford here that a heavy cart could possibly cross. There is only one way to the other side. It is a bridge, but it is not a magnificent, arched bridge of Roman stone. It is a sagging, rickety, and deeply treacherous-looking structure of old, gray, weather-beaten timber. You can see, even from a distance, that there are planks missing, like lost teeth in a rotten jaw. The entire structure seems to sag in the middle, groaning and creaking under its own ancient weight. It is less a piece of engineering and more an act of desperate, optimistic faith. And at the entrance to this sorry excuse for a bridge, there is a small, squat, and surprisingly sturdy-looking stone gatehouse. A heavy iron chain is stretched across the road, and from a pole above the gatehouse flies the banner of the local lord, a black boar on a yellow field, a clear and unambiguous declaration of ownership. This is a toll bridge. Your small, motley caravan comes to a halt before the chain. A man emerges from the gatehouse. He is not a simple gatekeeper. He is a man at arms, his face a mask of bored, professional thuggery, a stained leather jack on his torso, and a short, ugly-looking sword at his hip. He is followed by two other, equally intimidating, armed men. They are the Lord's law in this small, wet, and forgotten corner of the kingdom. The man-at-arms looks at your group, his eyes not seeing people, but seeing only a potential source of revenue. His gaze passes over the poor pilgrims, over the nervous craftsman's family, and it settles with a new and predatory glint on you, on your fine woolen cloak, on your sturdy leather boots, and most of all, on the heavy, well-laden cart that is the entire purpose of your journey. The toll, he says, his voice a flat, bored, and utterly non-negotiable grunt. A stern-faced priest with the pilgrims steps forward. We are on a holy pilgrimage to the shrine of the blessed Saint Thomas, he declares, his voice full of a righteous indignation. Surely the Lord would not tax men on their way to do God's own work. The man-at-arms gives a short, ugly, and humorless laugh. God may not tax you, Master Priest, he says, but the Lord of Blackwood most certainly does. The price for the upkeep of this fine bridge must be paid. He then recites the prices, a litany of pure, unapologetic extortion. A halfpenny for a man on foot, a full penny for a man with a mule, and for a merchant with a cart of valuable goods, he looks directly at you, a slow, greedy smile spreading across his face. For you, master merchant, with such a fine and heavy-looking cargo, the price is 10 silver pennies. The sum is an outrage. It is a fortune. It is more than a skilled craftsman might earn in a month. It is a naked and shameless act of robbery, performed under the thin and transparent veil of the law. One of the soldiers you are traveling with, his face flushed with the ale you bought him at the last village, steps forward, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. 10 pennies? He growls. That is a thief's price. The man-at-arms does not flinch. He simply gestures with his thumb to the walls of the gatehouse, where you can now see another half-dozen armed men, watching the scene with a look of bored, professional interest. Your own mercenary, for all his drunken bravado, is not a fool. He sees that he is outnumbered. He falls silent. You are trapped. To refuse to pay is to risk having your goods, and perhaps your life, confiscated by the legitimate authority of this land. And so, all eyes now turn to you. You are the wealthy man. You are the merchant. You are the purse. With a heart that is full of a cold, black, and impotent rage, you know what you must do. You reach into your tunic, into your secret, hidden pouch, the one you have been guarding so carefully. The act of revealing your money in this place, before these greedy eyes, is a moment of profound and terrifying vulnerability. You count out the 10 heavy silver pennies into the man-at-arms' waiting, calloused palm. And then, because you must keep your traveling companions, your so-called protectors, happy, you pay the toll for the poor pilgrim family as well. The man-at-arms, his face a mask of smug satisfaction, gives a signal. The heavy iron chain is lowered. You have permission to cross. The journey across the bridge is a nerve-shredding ordeal. The old wet planks groan and protest under the weight of your heavy cart. The entire structure sways with every gust of wind. You look down through a gap in the planks at the fast-moving brown water a dizzying 20 feet below, and you pray to a god you are not sure is listening that this greedy lord's bridge is not as rotten as his soul. You finally, thankfully, reach the other side. You have successfully, and very expensively, crossed the river. You are now in the lands of a new lord, a new and unknown jurisdiction, with its own set of rules, its own set of dangers, and, you are certain, its own set of greedy and rapacious toll collectors. The bridge was not just an obstacle, it was a border crossing, and it was a stark, brutal, and deeply frustrating lesson in the true, fragmented, and endlessly avaricious nature of the world you are traveling through. You have crossed the river, your purse significantly lighter, your heart heavy with a cold and impotent rage. The bridge and the lands of the greedy Lord Blackwood are now behind you. But you have not entered a land of safety. You have simply entered a new and unknown territory, a new square on the great, complicated, and dangerous chessboard of the kingdom. The sun is beginning its descent, the light turning a soft, melancholic gold. The need to find a safe place to stop for the night has become an urgent, pressing concern. Your small, strange caravan continues its slow, slogging pace through the endless mud. And as you travel, you begin to notice that the world has changed. The landscape is the same rolling hills, the same bleak winter-ready fields. But the details are different. The small, wattle-and-daub huts you pass are built in a slightly different style, their roofs thatched in a pattern you do not recognize. The very breed of the sheep that watch you with their blank, yellow eyes from the fields seems different, their wool coarser. You are only 30 miles from your own home in London, a journey of a single, long day's walk. But you feel as though you have crossed a border into a foreign country. In the fading light of the late afternoon, you arrive at a small village. It is not on your map, for your map is a crude and unreliable thing. It is a simple, humble collection of a dozen huts clustered around a small, stone-built Norman church. There is no inn here, no public house for travelers, but there is the promise of shelter, of a barn roof to sleep under, and perhaps a loaf of bread that can be bought. Your caravan comes to a halt in the center of the small, muddy village green, and the entire world seems to stop with you. The villagers, who were engaged in the last of their day's labors, all cease their work. A blacksmith, his face black with soot, lowers his hammer. A group of women, washing clothes in a wooden trough, all turn to stare. They do not look at you with the open, boisterous curiosity of the city dwellers. Their faces are a uniform mask of deep, wary, and profound suspicion. You are a stranger. You are a foreigner. And in this small, isolated, and self-contained world, a stranger is a thing of great and unpredictable danger. You, as the leader and the man of substance, must be the diplomat. You dismount from your horse, and with a smile you hope appears friendly and not arrogant, you approach a group of old men who are sitting on a bench outside the church. One of them, a man with a great white beard and an air of quiet authority, is clearly the village elder. And it is here that you encounter the next great, invisible, and deeply frustrating barrier of medieval travel: the language. You are both speaking English, but the English you speak, the educated, merchant-class dialect of London, with its soft vowels and its clipped consonants, is a world away from the thick, guttural, and ancient dialect of this rural Kentish village. It is almost a different language. "Good sir," you begin, your voice polite and clear. "My party and I are travelers on our way to the fair at Canterbury. We seek a place to rest for the night and to purchase some fodder for our animals." The old man stares at you, his brow furrowed in a look of pure, uncomprehending confusion. He murmurs something to the man beside him in his own thick dialect, a string of sounds that is almost completely unintelligible to you. You try again, speaking more slowly, using simpler words, the way you would speak to a slow-witted child. We need a place to sleep. We will pay. You hold up a silver penny, a universal language that you hope he will understand. The sight of the silver coin seems to break the spell. The old man's eyes light up with a flicker of understanding and of greed. He begins to speak, a long, rumbling, and almost entirely incomprehensible sentence. But you manage to pick out the words barn and bread. The negotiation is a slow, painful, and deeply humiliating process. Every simple request becomes a complex pantomime. You are a respected master of your guild in London, a man whose words can seal a deal worth hundreds of pounds. And here you are, in this small, muddy village, reduced to the status of a confused and babbling infant, pointing at your horse and then at your mouth to communicate the simple need for hay. Finally, a deal is struck. You will be allowed to sleep in the hayloft of the communal barn. You will be sold a loaf of their dark, heavy bread and a wheel of their hard, sharp cheese. But the elder makes one final and very strange condition. He points a gnarled finger at the small stone church. He speaks slowly, and you manage to piece together his meaning. The patron saint of their village is St. Giles, and his feast day is tomorrow. It is a local custom, he explains, that on the eve of the feast, no fire may be lit in the village after the sun has set, for it is believed that the light of a man-made fire will offend the moon, which is the saint's holy lamp. You are now faced with a choice: to agree to this strange, superstitious, and deeply inconvenient rule, which means you and your men will spend a cold, dark, and fireless night, or to refuse and to risk offending the entire village, who might then refuse you shelter at all. You agree. You are a man of the city. In your world, the light of the fire is a simple, practical tool. In this small, ancient, and deeply foreign world, it is a thing of profound religious significance. You have no choice but to accept and to respect their customs, however foolish they may seem to you. You are led to the barn. The villagers watch you, their faces still full of a quiet, unreadable suspicion. You have successfully negotiated a place to rest for the night. But the experience has been a deeply unsettling one. You have been reminded that there is no single unified England. There is only 1,000 tiny, different, and deeply suspicious little kingdoms, each with its own language, its own laws, and its own strange and powerful gods. And you are a stranger, a foreigner, an alien, in every single one of them. The night in the fireless, hay-filled barn was a cold, miserable, and deeply uncomfortable affair. You were surrounded by the snores of your own men and the constant, rustling presence of the barn's rats. But your sleep was haunted not by fear of thieves, but by the strange, unsettling customs of the village you were a guest in. You leave the village at the first light of dawn, without a word of farewell. A quiet and mutual parting between a people and a stranger who were glad to see the last of each other. Another 2 days of the same, grinding, monotonous journey pass. 2 more days of mud, of gray skies, of the soul-crushing boredom of the road. But then, on the horizon, a new and welcome sight appears. It is not a small, humble village. It is a true town. You can see the high, strong stone walls, the formidable-looking gatehouse, and the tall, reassuring spire of a great church rising from within. It is the town of Rochester, a bastion of civilization, of law, and of the king's peace on this long and savage road. The sight of it fills you with a profound and almost forgotten sense of hope. A walled town means a proper inn, with private rooms and real beds. It means a hot meal that was not cooked over a campfire. It means a night of true, blissful, and almost unimaginable safety. But you have learned on this long and difficult journey that every promise of sanctuary comes with its own new and unique kind of trial. As your small, muddy caravan approaches the town's main gate, you see that you are not simply going to be welcomed in. The gate is a bottleneck, a checkpoint. A long, slow-moving line of other travelers, of farmers with their carts, of pilgrims on foot, is queued up before the great, iron-strapped wooden doors. And at the head of the line, standing before the dark archway of the gatehouse, is a group of town guards. They are not the Lord's brutish men-at-arms from the toll bridge. These are different. They are the town watch, dressed in the proud official livery of the city, a blue and white tunic. They are armed not just with swords, but with an air of immense, bureaucratic, and deeply suspicious authority. They are not here to extort money. They are here to enforce the law. And that, you know, can be an even more dangerous thing. The line inches forward with an agonizing slowness. You watch as the captain of the guard, a man with a hard, intelligent face and a neatly trimmed beard, questions each person who wishes to enter his town. He is the gatekeeper, the guardian of this small, orderly world, and he is deeply, professionally suspicious of every single person who comes from the chaotic, lawless world outside his walls. Finally, after an hour of this slow, anxious waiting, it is your turn. You step forward, your carter bringing the mule and the heavy cart to a halt behind you. The captain of the guard's eyes sweep over you. He sees your fine, if now mud-stained, clothes. He sees your cart, laden with valuable goods, and he sees that you are a stranger. His face, which was already serious, becomes a mask of hard, official scrutiny. "Who are you?" he asks, his voice sharp, clear, and full of an authority that is absolute. "I am John of Cheapside, master," you reply, your voice as polite and as humble as you can make it. "A merchant of the London Wool Guild." "A Londoner," he says, and the way he says the word makes it sound like an accusation. "And what is your business in our town of Rochester?" "My business is in Canterbury, at the Great Fair," you explain. "We are merely passing through, seeking a safe place to lodge for the night." The guard's eyes narrow. "Many men claim to be on their way to Canterbury," he says, his gaze flicking to your cart. "Some find that their journey mysteriously ends here, and their goods appear in our market, undercutting the honest prices of our own guild merchants. It is a veiled threat. He is accusing you of being an unlicensed and therefore illegal trader." "I am an honest man, Master Guard," you say, your heart beginning to beat a little faster. "I have no intention of trading here." "Words are winged," the guard says, his voice flat. "Show me your papers." This is the moment of truth. This is the great, invisible, and deeply stressful reality of medieval travel. You are in a world without a unified national identity. You are a Londoner. And here, in the town of Rochester, just 50 miles from your own home, you are a foreigner. And a foreigner is a potential criminal until he can prove otherwise. With a hand that you pray is not trembling, you reach into the secret pouch inside your tunic. You produce the document that is your entire identity, your only claim to legitimacy in this world. It is not an official passport from the king. It is a simple but crucial letter. It is a piece of fine, folded parchment, written in the elegant looping script of the master of your guild in London. It attests to your name, your profession, and your good standing within the guild. And at the bottom is the most important part of all, a great, heavy, and unbroken blob of red wax, stamped with the official seal of the Worshipful Company of Woolmen. You hand this precious and fragile document to the guard. He takes it. He may be only semi-literate, but he knows how to read the symbols of power. He does not try to read the words. He examines the quality of the parchment. He looks at the wax. He holds the seal up to the light, inspecting it for any sign of a forgery. You stand there, a wealthy and respected merchant from the greatest city in the kingdom, and you are a helpless supplicant. Your freedom and your property entirely at the mercy of the judgment of a single provincial town guard. You know the consequences if he is not satisfied. You know the terrible fate of the masterless man, the vagrant. In this rigid, hierarchical world, every man must belong to someone or something. A lord, a guild, a monastery. A man with no papers, no affiliation, is a dangerous and disruptive anomaly. He can be arrested, he can be flogged, he can be branded with a hot iron, or he can be forced into a term of indentured servitude to the very town that has arrested him. After a long, silent, and agonizing moment of scrutiny, the guard seems satisfied. The seal is genuine. The parchment is of high quality. You are, it seems, who you say you are. He hands the letter back to you with a grunt. He gives a sharp, curt nod to the men at the gate. Let them pass. A profound wave of pure, unadulterated relief washes over you. You have passed the test. You are deemed legitimate. You are allowed to enter. You take your precious letter, you bow your head in thanks to the guard, and you lead your horse and your cart through the great dark archway of the gate, and into the town of Rochester. You have just survived another of the great and almost invisible dangers of the medieval road. The danger of bureaucracy, of official suspicion, and of a world where, without the proper piece of paper, you could, for all intents and purposes, simply cease to exist. You lead your small, weary caravan through the great arched gate of Rochester, and for the first time in what feels like a lifetime, a profound and genuine sense of relief washes over you. You are inside. You are within the great stone embrace of the town's walls. The chaotic, lawless, and unpredictable world of the open road is now, for a time, shut out. You have reached a sanctuary. The town is a bustling, vibrant, and deeply reassuring world. The streets are still narrow, muddy, and crowded, but it is the crowd of a functioning, civilized society. You see the signs of respectable craftsmen hanging above their shops. You see the town watch, their presence a promise of order. You see women from good families, their faces modest on their way to the market. After the profound and unnerving foreignness of the small rural village, the familiar sights and sounds of a real town are a balm to your frayed nerves. Your first and only goal is to find a proper inn, and you do. It is a large timber-framed building on the main street, its sign proclaiming it to be the Pilgrim's Rest. It is a world away from the grim, smoky, and flea-bitten hovel you endured 2 nights ago. Here, the common room is relatively clean, the fire burns brightly, and the innkeeper, a bustling and prosperous-looking man, offers you not just a place on the floor, but for a truly extravagant price, a small, private chamber of your own, a room with a real bed and a door that can be barred. It is a luxury so profound it almost makes you weep. You lead your carter and the mule to the stables in the back courtyard. Your 2 hired mercenaries, their duty for the day complete, immediately disappear into the common room. Their thirst for the town's strong ale, a far more powerful force than their loyalty to you. You see to it that your precious cargo, the cart laden with your woolen cloth, is parked in a secure-looking corner of the courtyard. You have done it. You have reached a haven. You can finally, after days of constant, low-grade terror and grinding physical misery, relax. But as you stand in the courtyard, a new and more subtle kind of anxiety begins to creep in. You have found a sanctuary, but you have not become invisible. You are a wealthy, foreign merchant who has just arrived with a cart full of valuable goods, and you notice that you are being watched. You see it in the lingering, assessing gaze of the stable hands as they look at your cart. You see it in the quiet, professional curiosity of the other, rougher-looking men who are drinking in the courtyard. You see it in the sharp, calculating eyes of the innkeeper himself. They are all making a simple and very accurate calculation. You are a stranger, you are rich, and you are vulnerable. Your two hired guards, your only protection, are, you know with a sinking certainty, already half drunk in the common room. They will be of no use to you tonight, and your cart, with the profits of an entire year's work, will be sitting in this dark courtyard all night, protected only by a simple canvas sheet and the fragile hope of common decency. The innkeeper, a man who has seen 1,000 worried-looking merchants like you pass through his establishment, seems to read your mind. He approaches you, his face a mask of professional concern. "A fine cart of goods you have there, master merchant," he says, his voice a low, confidential murmur. "It would be a terrible shame if some of the town's less reputable elements were to take an interest in it during the night." You look at him. You understand. This is not an expression of concern. It is the beginning of a negotiation. "The town watch is strong," you say, a weak and hopeful statement. The innkeeper gives a small, cynical smile. "The town watch is very good at keeping the peace on the main street," he says. "But a dark and busy courtyard like this, things happen. A cut purse, a slit canvas, a cart that is suddenly much lighter in the morning. It would be a tragedy." He lets the silence hang for a moment. "However," he continues, his voice now even lower, "for a guest of your standing, special arrangements can be made. I know a man, a very reliable man, a former soldier. He could be persuaded to watch over your property tonight, to ensure that it remains undisturbed." The meaning is perfectly, absolutely clear. This is a protection racket, a quiet, polite, and deeply English form of extortion. The reliable man he speaks of is not a guard. He is a member of the local thieves' guild, a man who, for a price, will ensure that his own colleagues leave your property alone. You are not hiring a guard to protect you from the thieves. You are paying the thieves directly. You are filled with a new and profound sense of weariness. You have escaped the outlaws of the forest, only to be cornered by the organized criminals of the town. You look at your cart. You think of the long, muddy, and miserable journey you have endured to get it here. And you know that you have no choice. "How much?" you ask, your voice a flat and defeated thing. The innkeeper names a price. It is, of course, exorbitant. It is another 5 silver pennies, a sum that is a fortune to a common man. It is the price of safety. With a heart that is heavy, with a quiet, bitter rage, you agree. The innkeeper smiles, and a few minutes later, a large, silent, and deeply intimidating-looking man with a scarred face and a single dead eye materializes in the courtyard. He takes up a position, leaning against the wall, his arms crossed, directly opposite your cart. He is your guard. Later that night, you lie in the unimaginable luxury of a real bed, in your own private, barred room. You are, by all measures, safe. But you do not sleep easily. You lie awake, listening to the drunken shouts from the common room below, and you are acutely aware that your safety is a fragile and expensive illusion. You have learned another crucial and costly lesson of the road. In this world, safety is not a right. It is not a service provided by the law. It is a commodity, a privilege, to be bought and sold by the men who are strong enough to control the darkness. And the price is always, always high. The night in the walled town of Rochester is a small, hollow victory. You have purchased a kind of safety, and in return, you have been granted a few hours of deeply unsettled sleep in a real bed. A luxury so profound it feels almost sinful. But the morning comes, as it always does, cold, gray, and demanding. You and your strange, temporary, and deeply untrustworthy caravan of travelers assemble in the muddy courtyard of the inn, preparing to once again face the hostile open world beyond the town's protective walls. The mood is grim. Your hired mercenaries are hungover, their faces a pale greenish hue, their tempers as foul as their breath. The pilgrims are already murmuring their morning prayers, their piety a silent, constant rebuke to the worldly concerns of the rest of the party. And the poor craftsman's family, who had huddled in a corner of the stables last night, look even more frightened and more vulnerable than they did yesterday. As the carter begins to hitch the mule to your heavy cart, it becomes clear that something is wrong. The craftsman, a thin, nervous man named John, is leaning heavily against the wall of the stable, his face pale and slick with a cold, unnatural sweat. His wife is at his side, her own face a mask of pure, anxious dread. He is unwell, she says to the group at large, her voice a small, pleading thing. He was unwell all through the night. The leader of the mercenaries, the great, bearded man with the scarred face, stomps over. He is a man with no time for weakness. Unwell how? He grunts, his eyes cold and appraising. The woman flushes with shame. She does not need to answer. A sudden, violent cramp seizes the craftsman's body. He groans, his hand clutching his stomach, and he stumbles away towards the foul-smelling privy, his movements a frantic, desperate shuffle. A deep and deeply uncomfortable silence falls over your small group. Everyone in this courtyard, from the highest knight to the lowest peasant, knows what this sickness is. It is the most common, the most feared, and the most lethal of all the traveler's ailments. It is the flux. It is dysentery. The priest with the pilgrims makes the sign of the cross. The foul humors of the road have entered his bowels, he says, his voice a low, somber pronouncement. It is a punishment from God for some hidden sin. You, with your modern knowledge, you know the truth. It is not a punishment from God. It was the suspicious pottage from the grimy inn 2 nights ago. It was the contaminated water from a village well. It was a single unlucky mouthful of food that was teeming with an invisible, microscopic army of bacteria that is now waging a full-scale, bloody war on the inside of the poor man's body. The craftsman stumbles back from the privy, his face now a ghastly, almost translucent shade of white. He is visibly weaker, and now you are all faced with a new and terrible dilemma. The mercenary leader is the first to give voice to the brutal, practical logic of the road. He cannot travel, the soldier says, his voice flat and utterly devoid of pity. He is not being cruel. He is being a pragmatist. He will slow us down to a crawl. A slow-moving party is a target. We will be walking invitations to every outlaw and cutthroat between here and Canterbury. We must leave him behind. To leave him behind, you know, is to leave him to die. He has no money for a room at the inn. If he is left here, in this strange town, he and his family will be beggars on the street within a day. The priest is horrified. Leave him? He cries, his voice a high-pitched sound of pure religious outrage. To abandon a sick man on the road is a mortal sin. It is our Christian duty to care for him, to show him charity, to help him and his family to the next abbey, where the good monks can tend to him. The 2 great opposing forces of the medieval world, the brutal, practical reality of survival, and the beautiful, demanding morality of the Christian faith, are now at war in your small, muddy courtyard. And in the middle of it all, there is you, the merchant, the man with the money. Every eye now turns to you. The soldiers look at you, their expressions a clear and silent threat. If you make us travel with this sick man, you will pay us more. The priest looks at you, his eyes full of a righteous, demanding piety. You are a rich man. It is your duty before God to pay for this poor soul's care. The sick man's wife looks at you, her eyes a silent, heartbreaking feeling and desperate plea for simple human compassion. You are not a lord. You are not a knight. But in this moment, because of the silver in your purse, you have become the reluctant leader of this small, fractured, and desperate society. And you must make a choice. You think of the bandits in the woods. You think of your own precious cargo in the cart. The soldier's brutal logic is the correct one. To slow down is to risk everything. But then you look at the face of the sick man's small child, who is hiding behind his mother's skirts, his eyes wide with a terror he cannot possibly understand. And you think of your own children, safe and warm in your house in London. You make your decision. It is not the logical choice. It is not the safe choice. It is the human one. He travels with us, you say, your voice louder and more authoritative than you intended. You turn to the mercenary leader, and you will be paid an extra silver penny for each day of the delay. The soldier grunts, a sound of reluctant but financially motivated acceptance. The priest gives you a nod of profound, sanctimonious approval. And the craftsman's wife looks at you with a gratitude so profound it is a physical humbling weight. And so, your strange caravan leaves the relative safety of the walled town and ventures back out onto the great, muddy road. But your company is now a different and far more dangerous thing. Your pace is now a slow, stumbling crawl, dictated by the faltering steps of the sick man who is leaning heavily on his wife. The atmosphere is no longer one of simple, suspicious coexistence. It is a thick, unhappy stew of the soldier's open resentment, of the pilgrim's loud, ostentatious prayers, and of your own new and deeply personal fear. You have made the moral choice. You have performed your Christian duty. But as you look at the slow, vulnerable, and plague-ridden party you are now the reluctant leader of, you are filled with the cold, sickening certainty that your single act of compassion may very well be the thing that gets you all killed. 3 more days pass. 3 more eternal, gray, and agonizingly slow days on the great, muddy road to Canterbury. Your act of Christian charity, your decision to not abandon the sick craftsman and his family, has become a heavy, suffocating, and deeply resented anchor that is dragging your entire small caravan down. The craftsman, John, is now too weak to even sit on a horse. He lies in the back of your cart, a pathetic, groaning heap of misery, his body racked with the bloody flux, his life slowly and audibly leaking out of him. He has transformed your precious cargo of fine, woolen cloth into a rolling plague house, a mobile tomb. The carter, who now has to manage the extra weight, is openly hostile. And your hired mercenaries, for whom every slow, crawling mile is an hour of increased risk for the same pay, have become sullen, mutinous, and almost as dangerous as the bandits you are paying them to protect you from. The fragile, temporary society of your traveling party has completely disintegrated. There is no more conversation. There is only the grim, silent, and resentful trudging through the endless mud. The soldiers walk ahead, their anger a palpable, menacing presence. The pilgrims walk behind, their constant, droning prayers a maddening soundtrack to your misery. And you walk beside the cart, the reluctant and deeply stressed captain of this slow-moving ship of fools. And the journey, which was a simple misery before, has now ground you down to a new and more profound level of exhaustion. It is a weariness that has settled not just in your muscles, but in your very soul. Your body is a testament to the road's brutal victory. You have not been properly dry in a week. A deep, damp, and aching chill has taken up permanent residence in your bones. Your fine London-made leather boots, which were the pride of your wardrobe, are now a ruined, shapeless mess, the leather cracked, the stitching giving way. The blisters on your heels from the first day have burst, and they are now raw, weeping, and almost certainly infected sores that make every single step an act of pure, gritting agony. The food has been a relentless diet of hard, stale bread, of questionable, sour ale, and of the same suspicious, greasy pottage at every miserable inn. You are in a constant state of low-grade malnutrition. Your belly is a churning, uncertain thing, and you have lost the sharp, robust appetite of a well-fed city man. You have lost weight. The fine clothes that fit you so well when you left London now hang loose on your frame. But the physical exhaustion, the aches and the sores and the hunger are nothing compared to the slow, grinding, and relentless erosion of your mind. You are living in a state of constant, unending, and multifaceted stress. When you pass through a dark wood, your heart is a frantic drum of fear, your eyes scanning the shadows, your hand resting on the hilt of your dagger. When you are in the open, you are consumed with the anxiety of your slow, crawling pace, knowing that you are a perfect, vulnerable, and inviting target for any outlaw who might be watching from a distant hill. And when you are in the supposed safety of the towns, you are subjected to the stress of the guards, of the toll collectors, of the constant, wearying need to perform the role of a humble, non-threatening, and yet respectably prosperous traveler. And now, a new and more intimate fear has joined the chorus. You are in constant, close proximity to a man who is dying of a virulent and contagious disease. Every cramp in your own stomach, every cough that rattles your chest is a moment of pure, cold, and private terror. You are constantly engaged in a silent, obsessive inventory of your own body, searching for the first telltale signs that the sickness has jumped from his body to yours. You look at yourself. You are no longer John of Cheapside, the respected and prosperous master of the Wool Merchants Guild. The road has stripped away the fine, comfortable veneer of your civilization. You are a dirty, exhausted, malnourished, and deeply paranoid creature, your nerves frayed to a thin, raw, and almost breaking point. Your thoughts are no longer of profit margins and of fine textiles. Your thoughts are of survival, of the next meal, of the next safe place to sleep, of the next potential threat. The road has unmade you. It has turned you from a man of the city into a wary, hunted, and almost feral animal. You sit now by a small, pathetic, and sputtering campfire. It is raining, a cold, miserable drizzle that makes the green wood of the fire hiss and spit. You are huddled in your damp, foul-smelling cloak, trying to chew a piece of bread that is so hard it feels like a rock in your mouth. You have not even found an inn tonight. You are simply camped, a miserable, wet huddle of humanity in a muddy field. You look at the dark, empty road that stretches away from you into the rainy darkness. You know that Canterbury, your destination, is now only a day or two away. But for the first time in your entire, successful, and well-ordered life, you are not certain you have the strength, either of body or of mind, to actually finish the journey. The night spent in the cold, rainy field was the lowest point of your journey. You slept in a state of utter, shivering misery, the damp seeping into your very bones, your dreams a chaotic torment of muddy roads and the accusing, hollow eyes of the sick craftsman in your cart. You awaken with the grim and certain knowledge that you cannot endure another day of this. Your body is broken. Your spirit is shattered. You and your strange, unhappy company prepare for the final day's journey in a mood of almost complete despair. The mercenaries are sullen and openly mutinous. The pilgrims' prayers have taken on a desperate, almost frantic edge, and the sick craftsman, John, is now in the grip of a powerful fever. His moans a quiet, constant, and heartbreaking accompaniment to the rhythmic squeaking of the cart's wheels. You begin your walk, a slow, stumbling, and almost funereal procession, with no real hope of ever reaching your destination. But after an hour on the road, something begins to change. It is a subtle thing at first. The road, which has been a relentless, sucking quagmire of deep mud for a week, begins to improve. You find longer and longer stretches of the old solid Roman stone foundations. The pace of the mule quickens. Then you begin to see more signs of life. You pass a well-tended farm, its fields neat and orderly. You see a great, stone-built church, its bell tower strong and confident. You pass a group of cheerful-looking merchants traveling in the opposite direction, who give you a friendly, confident greeting. The world is no longer a hostile and empty wilderness. You are approaching a center of power, of wealth, of civilization. A new and unfamiliar feeling begins to stir in your weary heart. It is a feeling you have not allowed yourself to experience for many days. It is a tiny, fragile, and almost painful flicker of hope. You walk for another hour, your pace now quicker, your head held a little higher, and then you crest a small, rolling hill, and you stop, and you see it. There in the distance, perhaps 5 miles away, nestled in a valley, is the city of Canterbury. The sight is so beautiful, so welcome, and so long prayed for that it is a physical blow. It is a vision. You can see the strong, reassuring, and almost impossibly safe-looking line of its great stone walls. You can see the dozens of smaller church spires that rise from within those walls, and rising above it all, a magnificent, impossible, and almost supernatural mountain of carved stone and soaring glass is the cathedral. It is the heart of the kingdom's faith, a wonder of the world. Even from this distance, it is the largest and most magnificent building you have ever seen in your life. It seems to touch the very clouds. The sun, which has been hidden behind a gray woolen blanket of cloud all week, now chooses this exact moment to break through. A single, brilliant, and holy shaft of golden sunlight lances down from the heavens and strikes the great central tower of the cathedral, making its high windows blaze with a light so bright it is like a piece of the sun itself brought down to earth. The effect on your small, miserable, and broken company is immediate and profound. The pilgrims who have been trudging along with their heads bowed, their voices a low murmur of prayer, all stop. They let out a great, collective, and joyous cry, and they fall to their knees in the mud of the road, their hands raised, their faces streaked with tears of pure, ecstatic joy. They have reached their Jerusalem. The long, painful, and arduous journey of their faith is at an end. The rough, cynical, and battle-hardened mercenaries, who have been a constant source of menace and complaint, fall silent. They stand by the side of the road, their mouths slightly agape, their hard, worldly faces filled with a look of pure, unadulterated, and almost childlike awe. And you are not a pilgrim. You are a merchant. Your quest is for profit, not for piety. But the sight of that great, shining cathedral, the sight of that safe and solid walled city, affects you just as deeply. A great shuddering wave of pure, overwhelming relief washes over you. A force so powerful, it makes your own knees feel weak. You lean against the side of your cart for support, and you are not ashamed of the hot, wet tears that are now tracing clean paths through the grime on your own face. It is over. The mud, the fear, the disgusting inns, the drunken soldiers, the suspicious villagers, the sickness, the endless, grinding, and soul-crushing weariness. It is all over. You have made it. You have survived. A new energy surges through your party. The despair is gone, burned away by the magnificent, hopeful sight on the horizon. The last few miles of the journey are not a crawl, but a triumphant, almost joyful march. The sick craftsman in the back of the cart, roused by the commotion, manages to pull himself up, a flicker of life in his fever-bright eyes. You finally arrive at the great western gate of the city of Canterbury. You can hear the loud, vibrant, and deeply, wonderfully normal sounds of a prosperous city within. You can smell the smoke of 1,000 hearths. The long, muddy, and dangerous road is finally, blessedly, behind you. The great ordeal of your medieval road trip has come to an end. And so your long, brutal, and deeply uncomfortable journey is at an end. You stand before the gates of Canterbury, a weary, filthy, but profoundly and triumphantly relieved medieval merchant. You have survived the road. You have survived the forest. You have survived the inns, the sickness, and the constant grinding weight of your own fear. You have reached your sanctuary. Let us leave you there, a ghost from the past, at the beginning of your hard-won business. And let us return to you, here, now, in the quiet, comfortable, and almost unimaginably safe world of the present day. Let us imagine that you, too, are about to embark on a 60-mile road trip. You do not spend a week drafting your last will and testament. You spend 5 minutes tapping a destination into a small, glowing glass screen in your hand. You do not hire armed, untrustworthy mercenaries to protect you. You check the traffic report. You step out of your house and into your own private personal carriage. It is a miracle of steel and glass. You turn a key, and with a soft, confident hum, a controlled and domesticated explosion of ancient, fossilized sunlight brings a complex and powerful machine to life. You pull out onto the road. But it is not the road of our medieval traveler. It is a smooth, black, and almost perfect ribbon of asphalt. A surface so flawless, so level, and so utterly predictable that his mind could only have conceived of it as the work of sorcery. You press your foot on a pedal, and you begin to travel at a speed of 60, perhaps 70, miles an hour. You will complete, in a single, comfortable, and almost completely thoughtless hour, the same journey that took our merchant an entire week of agonizing, back-breaking, and mud-soaked labor. Your greatest fear on this journey is not a company of bandits lurking in the woods. It is a traffic jam that might make you late for your dinner reservation. You grow thirsty. You do not stop to drink from a cloudy, parasite-filled puddle. You pull off the great road and into a brightly lit palace of pure, unimaginable convenience. You buy a bottle of water, drawn from a pristine spring 1,000 miles away, sealed in a sterile plastic vessel, and chilled for your pleasure. You grow hungry. You do not have to gamble on a bowl of suspicious, week-old pottage. You can choose from a dozen different kinds of food, each one prepared in a clean kitchen, its ingredients listed, its safety guaranteed by 1,000 laws and regulations that you have never even thought about. As the day ends, you do not have to beg a suspicious village elder for a place in a cold, flea-bitten, and rat-infested barn. With the same magical glowing screen in your hand, you have already looked at pictures of a dozen different inns. You have read the reviews of 100 other travelers, and you have booked a private, clean, and temperature-controlled room with its own personal and miraculously private bathing facilities, complete with hot, clean, running water. You are traveling alone, yet you are safer than our merchant was with his armed guards. You are protected by a vast, complex, and almost invisible web of systems that is the true miracle of the modern world. You are protected by the rule of law, by a unified system of justice, by a reliable infrastructure of roads and bridges, by the science of sanitation and of medicine. The final and most profound truth is this: your own simple. An entirely unremarkable trip is a luxury that would be to our medieval merchant a fantasy more incredible than any story of dragons or of wizards. You are living in his utopia. And for most of us, most of the time, we do not even notice. And here our journey into the past comes to its end. We have seen that for the medieval traveler, the road was not a place of freedom and of adventure. It was a hostile and dangerous wilderness that lay between the small, isolated islands of civilization. The journey was the ordeal. It was the price that had to be paid. The terrible, exhausting, and dangerous wasteland that had to be crossed to get from one place to another. For us, in our miraculous modern world, the journey is often the destination itself. It is the vacation. It is a source of pleasure, of freedom, of discovery. The open road is a symbol not of our vulnerability, but of our liberty. And now, as we end our own, much safer journey into the past, it is time to appreciate the quiet, motionless miracle of our own beds. Time to be grateful for a world where our travels are not a matter of survival, but a matter of choice. Time to rest, free from the fear of the muddy road, of the dark forest, and of the shared and flea-bitten bed. Time to sleep,